So many businesses operate under a really dangerous assumption when it comes to fire safety. They think that getting a professional service twice a year means they're totally covered. But what that actually creates is a 6-month blind spot, a gap where your liability can grow day by day without you even realizing it. So let's dig into why this gap exists and what the law actually requires you to do about it. Let me ask you something, straight up. Your system got a clean bill of health back in, say, January. But are you absolutely certain it's fully functional and legally compliant? Right now, today? The answer to that question is way more critical and honestly probably a lot more complicated than you might think. To really wrap our heads around the risk, we have to start with a law. And this isn't about some vague company policy. This is about your personal legal responsibility. Let's take a look at who the law actually holds accountable. The law uses a very specific term, the responsible person. Now, if you're an employer, a building owner, or the person in control of the premises, guess what? That means you. The legal duty falls squarely on your shoulders. And here it is. This is the legal foundation for everything we're talking about, the Regulatory Reform Fire Safety Order 2005. This isn't a list of suggestions, it's the actual legislation that spells out your non-negotiable duties. Now, here's the part that catches so many people out. It's right there in Article 17. Your duty is to keep your fire safety equipment in an efficient working order at all times. Notice it doesn't say on the day of the service, it says always. And that continuous duty is exactly what creates this compliance blind spot. And that brings us right to the core of the problem. This is where a false sense of security, a bit of complacency can really start to creep in. That huge gap between the professional maintenance checks, that's what we call the 6-month blind spot. Okay, let's walk through a scenario that happens all the time. It's January, the engineer shows up, does the service, and hands you a nice, clean certificate. You file it away, feeling good, confident you've done your part. You assume you're legally compliant for the next 6 months. But then, just a month later, something happens. An electrician is on site working on a totally different system. To stop the alarm from going off, they just quickly isolate a detection zone on the main panel. And then they forget to switch it back on. It's a simple human error, and it's completely undocumented. So watch how this one tiny mistake snowballs. That undocumented change in February, by March, it's developed into a critical fault. By April, an entire floor of your building could be completely unprotected. And all through May and right into June, you're operating as normal, totally unaware that your system is compromised and your liability is growing every single day. And the result is painfully clear. For 5 long months, you were in breach of your legal duty under Article 17. That professional service from January, it's basically irrelevant at this point. You were non-compliant, and you had absolutely no idea. So what happens if the unthinkable occurs during that blind spot? Well, this is where a simple technical problem can explode into a full-blown legal and personal catastrophe for you, the responsible person. The law is crystal clear on this. We're not talking about a slap on the wrist. If your failure to maintain the system puts people at risk of death or serious injury, it is a criminal offense. The stakes honestly could not be any higher. Let's just lay it all out in the starkest terms possible. On one side, you have your duty, which seems pretty straightforward. But on the other side, the reality of what happens if you fail in that duty is incredibly severe. We're talking unlimited fines and even a prison sentence. This is the personal risk that you, as the responsible person, are facing. Now, the law has evolved to address exactly this kind of situation. The Fire Safety Act of 2021 brought in a critical new concept that completely changes how you prove you've met your obligations. It's called risk-based guidance. So how does this actually work in a courtroom? Well, this part is absolutely key. If you can prove you are following the accepted guidance for your industry, you can use that as your defense. It's your shield. But, and this is a big but, a prosecutor can use your failure to follow that same guidance as evidence against you. It becomes their sword. Okay, enough about the problem. This is where we pivot to the solution. How do you actually follow that guidance and slam the door on that 6-month blind spot? The answer is all about shifting your mindset from periodic maintenance to ongoing verification. This distinction is so important. Maintenance is what the engineer does every 6 months. It's about fixing things. Verification, on the other hand, is what you do in between those visits. It's a simple, ongoing check to prove that the system is still working exactly as it should. Now, you might be looking through the law and thinking, I don't see the word weekly anywhere. And you're right, it's not explicitly in there, but the risk-based guidance it tells you to follow, the accepted industry best practice, absolutely calls for it. So if you want to have that legal shield we just talked about, performing and documenting regular user checks is the recognized standard. And the process itself couldn't be simpler. Once a week, you test a manual call point, you confirm that the sounders go off, and, this is the critical part, you record it in your fire logbook. That logbook becomes your physical proof of ongoing verification. So let's bring it all together. The combination of the 2005 order and the 2021 Act really creates a new mandate for every single responsible person out there. Compliance is no longer something that happens twice a year, it's a weekly action. This table really helps connect the dots. On the left, you've got the what, these big, broad duties from the law. And on the right, you've got the how, the specific, practical things you do to prove you're compliant. Your documented weekly checks are the real-world proof that you are actively keeping your system in efficient working order. So if you only take one single thing away from this explainer, please let it be this. True, defensible compliance isn't something you can just outsource every 6 months. It's something you have to own every single week. And that leaves us with one final, crucial question. Go take a look at your fire logbook. Is it filled with dated, weekly entries that provide a rock-solid history of your diligence? Or are there gaps? Because right now, that book is either your single greatest defense in a court of law, or it's your most glaring liability. The choice is yours.